Hi, I'm Oliver, principal of the International Macrobiotics School, and I want to talk about 8 steps you can take to eat plant-based. First of all, let's define what plant-based means, because it's not everybody knows. It means eating mostly plant foods. It can include a bit of animal foods, but it means mostly plant foods. So it's not eating a vegan diet, which is solely plant foods. It might include a little dairy, it might include a little meat or fish or other animal sources of foods. How much is important, and I will talk about that presently. Um, I'm being stimulated to make this video after reading an article that in New York City, in 2 years ago, they started a scheme of serving plant-based meals in hospitals and health centres. And they're celebrating 2 years and having served up 1.2 million plant-based meals, which apparently have been very popular. And the reason they're doing this is because it's actually slightly cheaper, and a plant-based diet has been very well shown to reduce heart disease, strokes, certain forms of cancer, high blood pressure. It's good for avoiding or helping heal type 2 diabetes. It's good for coming to one's natural weight. Um, it can be very good for as well for long-term energy, rather than the kind of spikes that people go through, tiredness, coffee, stimulants, tiredness. Eating whole foods gives us, they break down more slowly, they give us much more long-term, consistent energy and stamina. And that also means that our moods and our emotions tend to be more even as well, instead of sharp ups and downs. Angry, overactive, exhausted, depressed, etc. So lots of reasons for eating plant-based. The UK National Health Service has been advocating a plant-based diet in various steps. This scheme they came up with, the Eat Well Guide, in 2016. 1/3 complex carbohydrates from grains and other foods, 1/3 vegetables and fruit. So that's 2/3 plant-based. Then a protein section where it says eat less meat and processed meats and more vegetarian protein, beans, etc. And then there's the dairy or alternatives. It took me a long time to realize that milk is not an essential food, probably partly because of the influence of the Milk Marketing Board and people wanting to sell dairy foods. So they're recognizing there are alternatives to dairy, and then this final section is various kind of healthy plant oils to eat. So this is very much a plant-based diet, maybe a bit of animal food in here, possibly a little bit in here, but this is got to be at least 4/5 or 5/6 plant-based. And this is the way the world's going, realizing that this is the healthiest way to eat. Actually, it's the way that people have eaten in many parts of the world, in the Americas, in Europe, in the Middle East, in Asia. Most people have been eating plant-based for thousands of years. So lots of health benefits. So you may be at all kind of different stages of eating plant-based or not at all. So here are 8 stages. So first stage is to really reduce your intake of animal foods, which a lot of people turn to for protein. So that means less meat, chicken, oily fish, etc. So what does one eat instead? One has to start exploring. Obviously, if you just cut those out, sometimes I've been to a hotel or a restaurant where they say there's a vegetarian option. What they do is they just take the meat out and then give you all the vegetables and other things, and it's a very unsatisfying meal. You need to have something higher in protein to make a meal satisfying. So traditionally, people have eaten beans, lentils, pulses, aduki beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, etc., maybe made into hummus or bean pates. Some people, if you haven't eaten much in the way of beans for a long time, they are probably the most difficult plant food to eat, and they can cause a lot of wind and gas. It can take a few months for the intestines to get used to how to break them down. So one may need to be careful with them. To start off with, cook them very, very well, eat them in small quantities. But there are also alternatives. So there's tofu, which is made from soybean curd. Generally, people find that very easy to digest. Rather bland, you have to learn how to cook it to make it really tasty. Much stronger flavor is tempeh, which are blocks of soybeans which have had been cooked and had a mold grown on them. Strong flavor, quite firm. Fry it, put in soups, stews, a lot of different ways of cooking it. Bean pates like hummus tend to be easier to digest. Red lentils many people find that they're the kind of easiest bean to digest because the skin's been taken off. So it's not exactly a whole food, but the skin of beans is where there are chemicals which can cause a bit of digestive upset, which the beans produce in order to try and stop them being eaten by insects and other animals. So that's why red lentils might well feel better. One may also eat a small amount of animal protein as well. In macrobiotics, generally, we recommend eating some fish because it's very easily digested by the body. Sometimes white fish, sometimes oily fish. They are low in saturated fats, which a lot of people have overconsumed. Not that saturated fats are totally bad. It's fine to eat a bit of saturated fats, but if you've eaten a lot in the past, then it's a good idea to eat a pretty low saturated fat diet. So one needs to learn to cook and make these plant proteins really delicious. Bean stews, fried tempeh. Some people may use some soy protein. You can make things like shepherd's pies, but using the soy protein, etc. But generally good to mostly use whole foods, because whole foods, like a whole bean, has all the nutrients in it, nothing's been taken out, and also the full life force, or chi or ki, in the food. The more we process foods, the more the life force gets beaten out of it. And then we're getting the physical nutrients, but we're not getting the life force from the foods. Number two is to eat whole grains. Some people use potatoes quite a lot as the kind of carbohydrate filler. Better to use whole grains, contain a much wider range of nutrients. Potatoes, to some extent, high potassium kind of balance out meat eating. And actually, when you're not eating meat, good to reduce the potatoes. If you haven't got a health condition which is contraindicated by eating nightshades, such as rheumatoid arthritis, then eating occasional potatoes is fine. But whole grains really contain a wide variety of nutrients, and they're filling and really give us a lot of energy. So this is things like brown rice, quinoa, red, yellow quinoa, millet, barley, wheat, if you had no problems with gluten, spelt, buckwheat, etc. So having some grain at most meals, they fill us up, they give us energy, they give us a lot of nutrients. So it's learning how to make them, how to make them tasty. Whenever we're learning to make new foods, we've got to make them tasty. Otherwise, we're not going to want to eat them. So this is where cooking classes come in, and this is why we have online and residential cooking classes, which I highly recommend. Number three, stopping or greatly reducing eating dairy foods. You may enjoy dairy foods. Before I got into macrobiotics when I was 24, when I was about 22, I became vegetarian, and my main protein was a big block of cheese. I bought a big block of cheese every week, cheese on toast, cheese sandwiches, cauliflower cheese, etc. It was my main protein. When I got into macrobiotics and stopped eating dairy foods, my body had had enough of all that dairy fats. And I got into macrobiotics in the summer, and for three and a half months in the autumn, my body was just pouring out mucus, tons of mucus. I didn't have a cold. My body was just creating enormous amounts of mucus, getting rid of all that excess fat, because dairy foods are, for most people, are mucus forming. So I felt much better having cleared all that out. So if we're gonna reduce or cut out dairy, what are we going to eat instead? If we think about dairy, such as cheese, it's giving us protein, it's giving us some fat, and it's also got a certain amount of calcium in. So the protein I've already talked about, how we can get more protein in our diet. Fats, we need a certain amount of fat in our diet. For most people, less saturated fats, but we need some good plant oils. Eating seeds every day, and a few nuts. Seeds are cheaper. Seeds are great for giving us natural oils. We might also use some seed butters like tahini, a bit of nut butter, but easy to overdo. And then they start becoming mucus forming. And as far as also using some good quality plant oils in our cooking, nothing wrong with using oil in cooking. Olives, sesame, other plant-based oils. Then for calcium, actually calcium is not a difficult nutrient to get. Pretty much all whole foods, vegetables, grains, beans, sea vegetables, all have a good amount of calcium in. Particularly rich are seeds, especially sesame seeds, but just all seeds have a lot more calcium in than cow's milk does, for example, by weight. So as we cut things out, we've got to bring new things in, learn new ways of cooking. Number 4, vegetables. We need to learn how to make vegetables really interesting, because we're going to be eating a lot of vegetables. Maybe a third or half our plate is going to be vegetables. So just boiled vegetables, or just steaming everything is a bit boring. So let's learn to make a lot of different dishes, a lot of different cooking styles. We can roast vegetables, we can add root vegetables to stews, we can make soups, we can fry them, stir fry them, make pickles, eat salads, lots of different ways of eating vegetables to make them tasty. We can make dressings, use all kinds of different seasonings on them to make them interesting. Very nutritious, give us all kinds of, especially vitamins and minerals. Then number 5, learn to make some natural sugar-free desserts. Okay, well, sugar is plant-based, but it's not a whole food. And we're finding out in modern society that sugar, and especially eating a lot of ultra-processed foods, causes a whole host of different health problems. Rates of diabetes still going up pretty strongly. Type 2 diabetes still going up pretty strongly, for example. A lot of people think that desserts are unhealthy, and that's because they often contain a lot of sugar and a lot of fat and a lot of dairy, a lot of refined flour. But the good news is we can make really healthy desserts. We can make fruit crumbles and fruit jellies and fruit compotes and stuffed apples, poached pears, lots of really interesting desserts, even some kind of some healthier cookies, cakes, and then enjoy them. It's nice to eat something sweet, so learn to make some natural desserts. This also helps reduce your cravings for higher sugar and dairy foods. You might crave chocolate or some unhealthy biscuits, cakes, etc., if you're not eating natural desserts. Then number 6, most parts of the world, people make soups. Soups are warming, nutritious, and are great to make, and they don't have to take very long. You can make soups in 10 minutes or anything from 10 to 30 minutes. 2 different kinds of soups, which have a different effect on the body. There are broth soups. These are clear soups, where there's liquid with things floating in it, and seasoned with salt or something containing salt. Broth soups are very strengthening for the body. In Oriental medicine, especially strengthening for your kidney energy. So in the Orient, they make a lot of miso soup and shoyu or tamari broth. In Europe, traditionally, people have made fish soups, chicken soups, or bone broths. Um, um, and these are high in minerals and strengthening for the body. If you're making vegetable soups, very good to put in a bit of sea vegetable. So this is another new food to eat. Sea vegetables are so high in minerals. They're higher than any other food in minerals. So using them in small quantities, we can generally buy them dried. Just a little warning, if you haven't used them before, they expand by about 4 times. So you just put small amounts in. They add an umami flavor to all kinds of different dishes and give us a lot of minerals. So put a bit of wakame or a bit of dulse or another sea vegetable when you're making a broth soup. The other kind of soup are sweet soups, where we make a pumpkin soup or just use a lot of different, onions and carrots and parsnips and other sweet vegetables, and we may puree it, and that becomes sweet, and that kind of sweet flavor feels nourishing and relaxing to the body. So learning to make good soups, and with a lot of these dishes, you don't have to cook a fresh meal 3 times a day. With plant-based food, often it keeps very well for 12 to 24 or even 36 hours. So you can, so the pattern that a lot of people get into is cooking a good amount of food at their main meal. Most people at supper, some people it's lunchtime, and you make extra. So you have a nice supper, and then you make extra, and then for lunch you've already got maybe some cooked rice or quinoa. You maybe got some cooked beans. Maybe you just quickly steam some greens and fry the rice if you want to freshen it up, or steam it, and then you've got a whole new meal in 5 minutes. And this means that we're not having to spend too much time cooking. Number 7, good to eat, in order to create balance in the body, good to eat foods mostly which grow in the climate that we're living in. So here in Northern Europe, you may be living in other parts of the world, but if you're living in a temperate climate, more Northern Europe, a lot of North America, across Asia, Japan, then we want to eat mostly the foods which grow in this climate. We don't want to be eating a lot of tropical fruits, oranges, bananas, pineapples, etc., as delicious as they may be, mangoes. Much higher in sugar, have a much more cooling effect on the body. They come from the tropics. If you go to the tropics, eat them in the tropics. In a temperate climate, good to eat more berries, strawberries, blueberries, apples, pears, plums, all the different fruits that grow here, for example. And also good to broadly eat seasonally. This means in the summer that, or the hot season, we eat the vegetables which grow here, and often that's a lot more kind of salad type vegetables. We use lighter cooking methods, so the food's more cooling. More fruits are around at that time. Then in the winter, actually we eat less of those because they have a cooling effect. A lot of people struggle in the winter with feeling cold, feeling a lack of energy. So in the winter, we want to eat more warming foods. More vegetables, using sweet vegetables to get our sweetness, making some more stews and cooking beans and grains and things like that, to make some more warming dishes. And then number 8, which if you want to take it another step, is really learning the art of making balance. And this is what we study a lot in macrobiotics. We can become too tense, too overactive, too intense, too uptight, which in macrobiotics we'd say was becoming too yang, or we can become too relaxed, devitalized, empty, lacking motivation, depressed, losing our drive, and going too far that way. And we want to be in the middle. We need some building foods like whole grains, root vegetables, beans, soups, maybe some fish or a little animal food, These are building foods. They bring energy into the body so that we have good energy and stamina and strength. And at the same time, we also eat a whole variety of more green vegetables, maybe some fruits, pickles, vegetable pickles, and so on, some desserts, which have a more relaxing effect on the body. So if we're feeling particularly uptight, we can go that way. If we're feeling devitalized, we can go that way. And we just play from day to day and week to week and month to month with making balance. And this is how we create an internal balance and keep ourselves healthy. So 8 steps to eating plant-based. It's a great journey to go on. Do check out some of our resources on the International Macrobiotic School website. There are some free offers such as a sugar-free diet plan. If you want to kick sugar, which I highly recommend. There's a lot of good natural dessert recipes, etc. If you'd like more depth, there's a home study course, Macrobiotics Made Easy, which is 8 one-hour videos. And also we're continuously running cooking classes here at the school and also online. If we're gonna change our food, it's got to be delicious. We've got to enjoy it, and this food can be really delicious. You need to learn to use maybe some different seasonings to make it nice. Okay, so recommend eating plant-based, and I hope you enjoyed the journey.